In the call to action, we note that India is certainly still a democracy. But India is in a situation that political scientists often call competitive authoritarian. Competitive means that there are some political rights, and with a stretch, opposition parties can win elections. So we are not in the same league as many other countries where elections can't be won by opposition parties. And therefore, we have to respect the fact that democracy is not dead in India. However, in such regimes, authoritarian propensities that favor the incumbent party become so overwhelmingly stressed that it becomes very, very difficult for parties in the political opposition to win. It's like, if you're in a 100 meters race and when the gunshot is sounded, somebody is already 5 or 7 meters ahead of you or 10 meters ahead of you. So in this situation of a competitive authoritarian regime, there still exists a possibility that democratic consolidation can take place. If you are in a situation where Boris Yeltsin was, you could have become more democratic or less democratic. And comparative work on democracy shows that such possibilities exist. So in many ways, India could very well be at a turning point. And whether or not India will turn in the right direction will depend to a very great extent on the integrity of the Election Commission of India. Failing which, if not anything else, we will try our very best to point towards the problems. Problem number one is voter registration. Does every Indian citizen have the right to vote in an equal way? Robbing the right to vote is one of the easiest way for letting democracy slip. Second is the funding of elections. If the Election Commission of India is unable to stand up and is hiding the numbers behind those bonds, then not the Election Commission, the State Bank of India, then it looks compromised. Can the Election Commission of India stand up to all the guidance that has been given by the Supreme Court of India to perform not a revolutionary role, but just its constitutional role? The point about electronic voting machines has been detailed. Can India secure every vote? First is getting the voter to vote. The second is securing the vote in the right way. Between the VVPAT and the vote, will we allow things to interfere? Or will the vote end where the VVPAT ends? This will be a very important question. Then there is opposition politicians being targeted. As soon as they change their allegiance, they become prosperous. And people are talking about opposition politicians, but people are even not talking about our friends in civil society who work with the masses, who produce the values of democracy, who are being targeted by the Enforcement Directorate, the Central Bureau of Investigation, and the FCRA registration, which is also housed within the Ministry of Home. And last but not the least, the information environment. It did not take a great effort to convince a relatively modern and literate population in Germany to turn in a certain direction. The information environment is very, very important. That is probably the reason why Habermas talked about a public sphere. So we have to protect that information environment. The question is, will the Election Commission of India stand up to the task? Certainly, the mayoral elections that were held a few weeks ago pointed out to the fact that it was the Supreme Court that had to correct the Election Commission. If the Election Commission functions in that way, then we are completely compromised. would the Election Commission be attentive to the complaints that you are making and the complaints that we will want to highlight? Because at the end of the day, the Election Commission of India must not only be fair, it must be seen to be fair. And therefore, the challenge of turning a competitive authoritarian regime into democratic consolidation, which is something that we had seen in the decades of the 1980s and the 1990s, is a fairly daunting task. So let us hope that with our institutions and with an argumentative citizenry, we will be able to promote these values. Thank you very much to all the participants for being with us. I have not been able to see who they were, but I can see that almost everyone who started, at least the numbers suggest, stayed with us, and for asking those questions. And of course, I can thank my colleagues, but I should thank them for having invited me to this rather than for having participated, because they are equal and even more significant players in this process. So thank you very much. Thank you all. And I hope you will stay with us.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Recording stopped.